Disclaimer, this video has major spoilers for the ending of Legends Arceus. If you haven't seen Giratina yet, please just go do that and come back to watch this. I promise you that you won't regret it. Spoilers will ruin the true ending and the surprise of the twist. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, today's video is about Volo, the final battle of Legends Arceus, and why, in my opinion, this is one of the most well-designed villains and boss fights in all of Pokemon. Overall, Legends was a breath of fresh air for GameFreak and the series, in that it changed up a lot of worn-out tropes and conventions of the series and turned them on their heads to make something fresh, new, and interesting. Its final twist villain is no different. Twist villains in Pokemon have a long history. Most of the time, though, they don't really work story-wise for one reason or another. Let's talk about those, why they work and don't, because we need to understand GameFreak's successes and missteps before we appreciate the masterpiece that is Volo. Gen 1's reveal that the mob boss Giovanni is the 8th gym leader is great, but it didn't really go anywhere plot-wise or reach a satisfying conclusion. Gens 2, 3, and 4 didn't really have true twist villains. It was hinted who the real villain was in Gen 4, but we all know it was Cyrus. The next true twist villain is Gen 5's storyline, which is pretty amazing for Pokemon. Gen 5 overall is, in my opinion, incredibly underrated, especially in the story department. We see N being crowned king in the opening credits, and we get hints that all is not as it seems, but it takes a while until we understand that N is just a harmless figurehead. The true danger lies in Getsis, who propped up N as a leader so that he could ultimately control everything. It's a decent twist, and it leads to some interesting character arcs and backstory. N ends up wanting to break free from who he was conditioned to being since he was a child and go out on his own, taking the other legendary with him and flying into the sunset. Getsis is defeated by the player, blinded by his arrogance and hubris. I won't talk much about Gen 6's twist villain, except that Lysander is kind of boring as far as villains go and his motivations, and the plot of X and Y is one of its weaker points. In the plot department, though, AZ is pretty cool and I liked his storyline. Gen 7 is next up, and oh boy did it have twists. I suspected there was something up with Aether and that Team Skull was suspiciously non-threatening, but never did I expect that they were bankrolled by Aether and that Lusamine was driven mad by the disappearance of Moan into Ultra Space, whom I'd seen in the Pokepolago, but I hadn't actually made the connection to Lusamine or the kids. Lusamine is an interesting, tragic, and monstrous character, at least, especially dealing with her children, and I love the theme of all-encompassing obsession, but her being the villain was a little too heavily foreshadowed. Gen 8's story? Ugh. I promise I've really enjoyed playing Sword and Shield, but it's not a hot take to say that its story is absolutely the worst in the franchise. If I tried to explain it to someone who hadn't ever played it, I'd look like an idiot. Actually, I might make an entire video about how much I hate Sword and Shield's story, and also why some positive aspects of the game counterbalance that. I promise I'm not one of those, Sword Shield is bad kind of people, you know? I promise. I have like 500 hours in that game. Also, the DLC plots, especially Crown Tundra, are actually decent, and I enjoyed them. Rose, like Lusamine, is predictable, and his motivations are vague and near incomprehensible. He's destroying the Galar region to prevent an energy crisis 1,000 years from now? You don't think they'd figured something out by then? They could have had an interesting metaphor for corporate greed amidst environmental crisis, but no. Anyways. This isn't anything new. You've heard about Sword and Shield. You've already heard all the hot takes about it. I'm 3 years too late. So. Anyways. And then you get Legends Arceus. In my opinion, this is one of the first games since Gen 5 and maybe Gen 7 where GameFreak actually hired competent writers, created interesting characters, and created a compelling, emotionally mature, and ultimately satisfying plot. When you first scale Mount Coronet to calm the time-space dragon, you get a feeling that Kamado is the twist villain. I knew for sure when I was surprised by the freaking Kukubeni, who gives off some of Kamado's backstory, making it seem like Kamado's some kind of madman who needs to be stopped. He has this vision for a new world and gives off Cyrus vibes. Once you get up there, however, you realize that Kamado isn't really that evil. He's deeply misguided and stubborn and flawed. And in this case, you really did need to save him from his own pig-headedness. He didn't pose a danger to the world like Cyrus did. The world posed a danger to him, and you have to talk sense into this flawed but ultimately understandable man. I love that they could have made him a classic villain, but instead made him a flawed and paranoid but ultimately redeemable individual doing what he thought was right. The story quote-unquote ends, everyone celebrates, and you think it's over. I was bugged that they never explained the space-time rifts forming, or why Dialga and Palkia were angry, or why any of this happened, but I felt good about it. Everything seems right in the world, and you're let back in the village. It was a decent enough ending of the plot, and I didn't really think there would be anything more. Based on previous Pokemon Post games, I didn't expect there to be an entire plot after the main plot. The only other game that has this is probably Oras with its Delta episode. But let's go back a bit and take a second to talk about that pre-Coronet banishment. I was shocked Pokemon had the brass balls to do this and go through with it. The walk of shame, the abandonment by everyone, including the 2 clans. Everyone is either openly hostile or saying, well, I could help you, but that'd put me in a difficult position. Which is true, but that doesn't make it suck any less. Who is your only true friend from all of this? Someone who helps you no matter what. Silene, sure, and Laventon, and Ray, and Akari, but mainly Volo. Volo is the one who finds you a safe haven where Rita and Adamant can safely talk to you. He follows you to the lakes with them and encourages you the whole way. He gave you what Laventon and Akari and Silene couldn't, which is physical safety. Your exile, a betrayal by the Galaxy team, makes you feel closer to Volo. He feels like the only one in the world at that moment who really cares for you, and he feels like your only option. Like it or not, he's one of the few besides Silene, Laventon, and Akari Ray who is always on your side. In the fake post-game, you go on a fun plate hunting quest with Volo, you catch some legendaries, he helps you along the way. The entire time, especially now, you get hints that his motivations are stranger and deeper than just being a history buff, especially his maniacal laugh and Giratina monologue at the Celestica ruins, and his frenzied reaction at seeing the Pixie plate. You dismiss them because Volo is your friend. He wouldn't be evil, would he? Just like a toxic friend, in real life they make it all too easy to rationalize and explain away his weird outbursts and obsessive odd-sounding dialogue. The plot is low-key gaslighting you, and it works because it's completely believable that you're overthinking his dialogue. He's just an eccentric. Then you get to the temple. He's like, I detect a distinct lack of Giratina. I remember laughing at this deadpan humor and thinking, okay, my dude, where are we off to next? Then he mentions true intentions, and I'm like, oh god, I know what that means. Whenever someone has true intentions, it's either a good guy in a liar revealed trope, or a twist villain. Then he rips off his Ginkgo Guild clothes to reveal who he truly is, a power-hungry Arceus cultist and Giratina admirer who will stop at nothing to achieve his goals. I guess I should have expected that from the guy who said that the best way to catch a Pokemon is to surprise it by hitting him back of the head before it sees you. God, this foreshadowing. Volo comes from the Latin for I wish, and it shows. His wish of meeting Arceus and controlling it has overtaken any humanity he might have shown you throughout the story. He wishes, he wants, he needs so badly to achieve his dream that he's willing to kill you, to kill everyone, to accomplish it. Dreams are usually seen as positive in the Pokemon series, such as Ash's dream of becoming a Pokemon master. This is the dark side of that, showing that dreams are not always good. I guess Elderbug really was right all along. Volo's interaction with the concept of Arceus is super fascinating for me for two reasons. One, the Sinnoh games introduced the literal creator of the universe, and people know it likely exists and it can theoretically be captured and used, but they didn't do anything with this information or any of the repercussions that would come from that in-world. Think about if we knew that God was 100% scientifically provably real and he could be controlled. The repercussions of this knowledge existing in-universe has never been explored with Arceus, only lesser legendary Pokemon to a smaller extent. Until now. Now we understand what the knowledge of Creator's God existence does to the wrong person in the Pokemon universe. It's almost Lovecraftian, driven insane by the knowledge that there really is a Creator God out there, and that you could find it and maybe even harness its power. My second reason why I find this so fascinating is the motivation behind Volo's wish. He mentions wondering as a child why life was unfair, and this pushed him to find Arceus. He literally brings up the problem of evil in a Pokemon game. Considering that the problem of evil is genuinely compelling in real-life religious discourse, it's great in this story. If Arceus is good, why is there injustice in the world? It's a valid question, but one that Volo takes way too far trying to answer. Another interesting point that had never been explored before was Giratina wanting to take down Arceus. It's the reason Giratina is on Volo's side and why he uses it to draw Arceus out of hiding by messing with the rifts and driving Dialga and Palkia crazy. It's an absolutely genius move for this to be a plot point because it finally wraps up everything that we've been building to this entire time and answers our questions about the origins of the space-time rift. I've heard some theories that Arceus sent us into Hisui to stop Volo, and considering that Volo caused this crisis that we are presumably being sent in to solve, you could argue that the game kind of confirms this. And finally, the battle itself. The score, like everything else in this game, is incredible, and Volo's nostalgic Cynthia theme is both epic and catchy as hell. The team is incredibly difficult, and like Volo himself, it gives a false sense of security once you beat him. Then the game has the guts to have him actually threaten you with Giratina, commanding the literal Pokemon Devil to strike you down. Then, just like the previous battle, you have a false sense of security when you kill Altered Form. Then its eyes flash red like an alpha, although it also kind of reminded me like a meme. And the electric guitars start playing Giratina's theme, and chef's kiss, it's too perfect. When you finally defeat him, he isn't arrested, he still refuses to give up on his dream. Ominously, no matter if it takes centuries, there's some weird, like, undertones of immortality, especially with Kagita and her handling of Enamorus, but that's a different video. And then Volo just walks away. This is all to say that Legends is a great game with excellent true ending, and I'm glad it's gotten all the well-deserved praise it has. I hope everyone enjoys this game as much as I do. It seems like they all do, and this was the first Pokemon game in ages that I was not disappointed by. A true challenge with a compelling story that I felt like was targeted towards me, specifically as an older fan. Oh, so I'm an ecology major who loves fieldwork and Pokemon. Of course I'll pour 100 hours into this Pokemon field research game. Anyways, Thanks for watching. Leave your Volo ideas in the comments below or tell me what to cover next. I love watching long-form content like this on YouTube, and I'm excited to make it. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more.